Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin in Real Life. So, not much has happened for me. I'm actually uh, back in Houston, and I'm making preparation for uh, fall and winter. And so, I'm cleaning, cleaning the house, cutting the grass, uh, getting things ready for the cold. Anyways, that's what I've been doing, but seems like things have been going around uh, in America uh, with the whole election happening, uh, movements in price in Bitcoin and in other things as well. Um, it's kind of been really crazy. Um, anyways, let's let me go over some things and I'll talk about the election first because I wanted to point this out. Um, I guess after analyzing some things and um, let me have my take on it. Let me hold on here. Let me switch over to another uh, thing here. Okay, so um, it's kind of weird and strange to have this happen sometimes, where you have an election where the popular vote loses, from what I understand. It seems like people are wondering how can this be? And if you look at the total votes, popular votes, you're wondering like, you know, should have been a little bit closer. But that's not how it works, does it? So if you know anything about electoral college maps, this is kind of a little bit about it. Um, but all you have to do is just learn about your election, and you'll learn about this. High school, college, or high school social political science class or something, whatever. Anyways, I really wanted to take a look at this. That's what I really wanted to see. I wanted to see like a little bit better picture of how it looks, other than what you've normally seen, which would have been, let me see here, which would have been something like, I think it was something like, let me see. I'm trying to see if I got the right one here. I think this looks like it. Instead of something like this, usually used to seeing something like that, which is helpful, but I wanted to see exactly where did all these votes come from. So after looking at this, it kind of tells you a little bit about what's going on here. Um, so here's my take on the whole thing. Why not? Let me see here. What I've noticed right away was most of these blue colors are in major metropolitan, dense, just generalizing, but mostly dense populated areas, or wherever there are basically a city in that state. Um, and I looked at the map real close, and yeah, you could tell uh, where the cities are. And there's pretty much Houston. I'm not sure if that's Austin or not, or Dallas. That might be Austin. That's San Antonio. Uh, that's El Paso. So I know that. Um, around here, if you look at New York, you got Buffalo, Rochester, I don't know, Syracuse, Albany, and some other. These are just little, basically cities, and you can see they're blue. And then you got down here, New York City, where it's really blue. But if you know, and if you look at this map a little bit better, you really start seeing it. It was I would say country versus city. It almost seems like um, country versus city. How can I say this? You know, when I travel and I leave the city, it is different. Um, People don't seem to protest as much. Um, they tend to you know, because there's less dense of a population. Um, you may not see each other that often, or even more often. Excuse me. So, anyways, you probably know them as another word called the silent majority, because they don't protest, they don't get to be on the news. You don't see them on the news that much because they're not in dense cities where all the major news um, is going on for the most part. Um, you know, uh, the media centers, you know, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, you know, wherever there's large, dense population. New York and Los Angeles being the two major, I guess, media centers. Um, but that's what I noticed. And if you notice, what I did notice during the election was that the media seemed to lean to a certain candidate more often than not. That's what I noticed. And where do these reporters and where do these people habitate? They live in major metropolitan crowded cities. And these are the people who are supposedly reporting and, you know, campaigning almost. And maybe that's where all the polls were being taken too. So if you look at that versus, and I can see why, because in a city, in a large dense population, it's easier to make a poll versus a town of 100. It's not a really good sample. You think diversity gives better samples? Well, it does and it doesn't, depending where you are. So that's what I can tell from that. Does it mean that California will this big? I would say more than half of that California is blue here. And by the way, this is not blue. This is gray. I don't know why that's gray. I always assumed that would be blue, but it's not breaking down. And again, if you just look at Oregon, you can see this is in major cities or in populated areas. This is Portland's over here. This would be what I don't know if that's Eugene or something like that. I would assume the same. Seattle will probably be dense, more blue. I don't know if the whole state is blue like that. This is actually gray. But California leaving America, this whole nonsense, I don't think that's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Just for a lot of reasons. I just don't think that's plausible. They just don't have enough firepower to leave. So, but definitely a lot of protesting. Anyways, that's my take on this whole thing. Um, how is this related to Bitcoin? How is this? What's going on? Well, let me take a quick look at the price again, and let's back up here. All right, so uh, so uh, let me see here. That I believe this was on that election day into the next day, and then it's slowly been going down. Even panic sell a little here, and now it's kind of looks like a bounce up. Does that mean anything? I don't know. All I know is that um, the way, well, let me just go back to this here. I don't know how far I have to go out. Okay. So just follow me on this, and it just seems so weird how this whole thing happened. I don't even know what to make sense of it. But there's your right here. That's your price jump on the election or night of the election, and then, which was weird because right about this time is when the polls started closing on the East Coast side, and it almost seems like the reason why I mention is it almost seems like as soon as the polls were closed, it almost seems like information was already known on the results before it became known to the general public. Okay, and that's why I wanted to kind of mention that. I don't know if anybody else witnessed that, but that's what I witnessed. Um, that before the news media announced Trump as the winner, the price started already moving up, and vice versa on the other markets, it started going down. So, and then after it was announced, the price started coming down, went sideways, and then the anger, seems like a lot of angry people started to sell off, didn't like that, uh, didn't like the results, and I don't know what they were cashing out to. Also, another thing during this time was Monero was starting to go up in price as well, and the price of Zcash, kind of right at this time, at the same time as well, was starting to fall quite a bit. It's as soon as more of these Z coins were being mined, they were being sold. So that's another thing. And then during that same time, Monero started to really spike up. And then all of a sudden, don't know why today, but I guess after the sell-off here, it started to rise again a little bit, especially after reaching this peak low. It started pumping up back to this level here, almost. I'm still waiting for it to push a little bit more. But this is on Bitstamp, Bitstamp, and 1 hour. So I'm just going to the chart because I'm wondering if these price action are a direct result of a couple factors: Trump election, Zcash deflating, Monero also rising at the same time, and then suddenly a price move over of Bitcoin back to around this level. Excuse me, got a little cold. Anyways, I don't know what to make of it, but that's the only thing I can tell from these price movements. And what I find interesting is that the price moves based on what's happening in real life. Before, it used to be kind of about China buying, escaping capital controls. Um, you know, I'm starting to think now that it's more than that. It's getting more and more complicated with the addition of altcoins, anonymous coins, and current events that are happening to have these price move now. So it's, in my opinion, and let me just get back to this here real quick, is you know, every 4 years you get something similar, but it's always different, but very revealing of current mindset. So I think a lot of people who are into cryptocurrencies and I don't know, whatever thing you're into, um, I think you should consider looking at some of these results. I know if you're not into politics, but look at these results, and I think they're going to tell you maybe how to interact in your environment, in your country, at least in America, when it comes to the topic of cryptocurrencies, um, anonymity, privacy. Uh, what else? I mean, dark markets are still associated with cryptocurrencies because of Monero, Zcash, what they're specifically designed to be used for, um, encourages, I would say, the dark markets or the darknet markets. But also, it's getting more complicated because now you're adding politics, um, political issues, and mixed in with a little bit of social issues and current events are all now tied together with Bitcoin and other altcoins, and other altcoins are now tied to Bitcoin. Um, if you ask me, it seems like, in my honest opinion, it seems like all altcoins hinge on Bitcoin for some reason. It just seems everyone's competing. If competition is what they're after, then everyone's competing. Um, but I don't think they're competing necessarily uh, with each other. I think they're competing with uh, with Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, not competing against people who use Bitcoin. And not like we're getting the, the the forks and the pitches and axe and demanding heads or anything. Um, what I'm talking about is the tokens are competing. Um, but this is the first time I've seen a competition between two types of. Well, it's not the first time, but it's the first time I've seen a natural competition for a particular type of cryptocurrency, which is anonymous coins. Before that, I think Ethereum was probably the first coin that I've ever seen compete, but it wasn't because of anything. I would say that was unnatural, because what happened was Ethereum, ETH, and then Ethereum Classic. Those two are competing with each other. And the way it happened, obviously, was because they forked. But that's probably the first competing cryptocurrency that competed against each other for the same space, other than trying to compete against Bitcoin. all cryptocurrencies compete against Bitcoin, I believe, because all hinge on Bitcoin. They're trying to break away from that, become their own coin, and that's been going on since day one. But I would have to say Ethereum was the first cryptocurrency that I saw that would compete with each other, and then, but that was unnatural, just because of the way it happened. And then I would say anonymous coins are now competing with each other. I would even throw in Dash, because they say they do. They're anonymous and all that, you know. So you could throw in Dash in there with Zcoins and any other anonymous coins, and Monero. Now you're going to see these Pacific currencies compete with each other like Pacific currencies. So it's going to get kind of crazy. A lot of things are going to get mixed in. And then, as I guess the cryptocurrency market matures, I guess you can call it maturing, I'm not sure, evolving, you're going to start seeing political influences on these coins, and then social influences on these coins, and somehow they'll all be tied to dark markets, both over the internet and, of course, in real life. And then, man, it's going to get even more complicated, if not already. So anyways, that's what's kind of going on for me in my head. Let me end this episode here. But I'm examining this map, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, well, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? I guess let me talk for just a little bit more, just on the whole election thing, and how someone had a popular vote but lost. How did this happen? Well, the density of how many people vote in an area doesn't really matter. It's actually where you're supposed to be voting, where you're voting. So if you're concentrated in a small block of an area, you're only going to get credit for that small block of area, even though it has a lot of population. And it doesn't necessarily count as a whole. That small block doesn't represent the whole, so you got to get the whole, or a majority of the whole. So anyways, what I think happened was that, yes, there's a lot of people who voted, but I think where you voted made a difference. If you were in a dense populated area, your vote was minimalized or diluted, versus someone else's vote who, in a rural area, not so dense, their vote mattered more than the person who lives in a densely populated area. Your vote mattered less. I know it sounds weird to say that. So it wasn't about really, and that's why I say city versus country, because it really depended on where you voted. So if you're densing up in an area and your support comes from a dense area, I guess you have to assume that you're going to need more than that. You need the dense area and other places. But anyways, that's what I noticed. It just goes to show you got to reach out everywhere. And I think that's the thing about Bitcoin, is that, or cryptocurrencies, if you want to let other people know, whatever cryptocurrency they choose in the future, is up to them. But you got to reach out. You just can't be in your comfort zone. You actually have to go places, and, my goodness, actually even meet new people and talk to them. So anyways, this concludes this episode. Let me see here. Where do I want to end this? Let's end it off right here. Let's refresh this before I go, see if there's any changes to it. so we can keep up to date. Jeez, I'm gonna focus here. Alright, so there's the current situation. Anyway, this concludes this episode. Feel free to like, dislike, leave a comment, or even do a video response. Until next time, stay tuned. Bye.